This show is dedicated to helping you strengthen your family tree and live financially free. Welcome to the Marriage, Kids, and Money podcast, everybody. This is Andy Hill, and today we're talking about helping our kids develop an entrepreneurial mindset. As a new member of the entrepreneurial world, I know the freedom and the responsibility that comes with owning your own business and providing a valuable service for your customers. And I would love for my kids to experience entrepreneurship, both the freedom and the responsibility that comes with it, and decide if it's right for them. Today, I'm going to speak with a teacher who spends his days educating high school kids in personal finance and entrepreneurship. And I'm hoping he can educate me and you on how to coach our kids to small business success. Rob Phelan is my guest today. Rob is a part of the ChooseFI team, where he co-leads as a K-12 financial literacy curriculum developer. He's proud to be developing a free-to-use curriculum for school districts, educators, homeschool teachers, and parents to adopt and use. When Rob isn't educating kids about money and entrepreneurship, he's playing soccer and spending time with his wife and infant son in Maryland. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Hey, Andy. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. This is a fun conversation and one I have not had on this show, so I'm very excited to chat with you today. Why do you feel it's important to educate kids about personal finance and entrepreneurship?
Almost two separate sides of the same coins. You got personal finance, where we learn to manage our money, how to build the mindset, the skills, the beliefs, like the knowledge, everything you need in order to be able to manage your money in such a way that you're not going to be in a financial hardship. So you feel like life just goes a little bit easier when money is not one of those things that's weighing you down. And if we could teach kids to manage their money from an early age, maybe we even save them from that hardship that most of us felt probably in our 20s, 30s, when we started realizing, hey, you know what? All that spending I've been doing, that catches up to you pretty quick. If you can give them the skills, even if they do get in trouble, that now they have the skills and knowledge to dig themselves out of it, I think it would save a lot of hardship, sweat, tears, feelings of stress. I mean, you name it, like money is involved in it somehow. Entrepreneurship side, I mean, you kind of talked about like, hey, wouldn't it be awesome if our kids learned whether they wanted to do this or not? And that's true. Like entrepreneurship, you could take that down as a career path, but also just the skills that come from practicing entrepreneurship are so applicable to other parts of life as well. I'm also a math teacher, so I find that entrepreneurship translates so much into math because entrepreneurship is problem solving. It's all about recognizing what are the pain points, the problems in society, and then what does the solution to those look like? And math skills will help feed into that. And then entrepreneurship feeds back into that as well. When it comes to managing money, I mean, a business is just it's a smaller household, basically. You get to say, all right, the money's going to come in, the money's got to go out. It's got to balance. We need profit. We can't run this thing at a loss. And we want to try and be more efficient with it. We want to make sure we're making good decisions. Like if we all ran our households like we would our business, it actually might be a kind of a better story for us in most cases.
I like that balance of talking about it from the household standpoint. So let's talk about ages. I've got a 8-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. You know, how early can conversations happen about entrepreneurship?
I mean, I talk to my 6-month-old son about this all the time, and he just sits there and takes it all in.
Right over.
I would say that you can start having this conversation like from a super early age. Maybe like I've heard kids like 3, 4, 5 years old. As soon as you start talking about they want something, they point at something to say they want it, and the lessons that you can start teaching about. Well, there are some things that we can just give you. There's some things that you have to earn. Not everything can be just handed to you. There is that delayed gratification part that we need to practice, or we need to be patient, or realize that we can't afford everything. We have to make choices. When we were developing the ChooseFI curriculum, we actually went down as low as pre-K. That's when we start actually teaching, financial ideas to kids. And at the pre-K level, you're talking about things like sharing, about saving, delayed gratification, being patient, things that you may not realize have a connection to money, but if you can learn those mindsets and skills and then start applying them to your finances later, you're going to be in a much stronger position. So when we get to that middle school age, that high school age, we don't have to try and teach those things as well.
Yeah, it's funny that the delayed gratification thing might be a pre-K curriculum, but it's something I'm still working on at 38, right?
Oh my gosh, we all are. Like, how hard is it to not hit that Amazon buy now button? You got to It's our society. Like that is what we want. Convenience is the name of the game. Like how easy can you make it to buy something or to execute whatever it is you're trying to do? And companies know that too. Like one of the biggest sales tactics you can do is to try and remove as many barriers as possible from a person being interested to when they want to buy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, based on you being a teacher in personal finance and entrepreneurship and being involved in the development of this curriculum, has there been a rise of this type of interest of classes in overall schools in the United States, or is there just been sort of stagnant? What is the I guess the feeling today in the school system?
I would say I'm a little biased because I'm in the FI community and like this is all I want to talk about. And I'm super interested in it. And I surround myself with people who are of the same mindset. But I would say that financial literacy is becoming a hotter topic in education. You're starting to see states kind of looking at what they are doing with financial literacy. They're making changes. We've seen North Carolina and Kentucky both pass bills that is going to make financial literacy a required full semester class for graduation, which is awesome. And that'll increase the number of states we have doing that up to 7. Of our 50 states, 7 are saying we have a standalone semester of personal finance that is a graduation requirement. That if we are talking about preparing kids for college and career readiness, those are kind of the big buzzwords in education, that not being able to manage your own money seems like a failure in being college and career ready. Like how can you make decisions about college or about going into a career if you can't manage your own money?
Yeah. I mean, no offense to science or U.S. history or French class, but why is it only a requirement for 7 out of 50 states for people to be educated in this way?
I don't know. Throw math in there too. Like I'm a math teacher, but I say, heck yes, like we need to find space for this in our curriculum. Based on the digging I've done into it, it used to be a much bigger focus in classrooms. So you go back to probably like our grandparents' age, maybe a little bit older again, home economics was a subject that was broadly taught, and you were taught how to manage a household. And that came with, the stereotypical sewing, cooking sort of stuff, but also the economics of managing a home. So people were taught how to pay bills, how to manage income and expenses and make sure that, your accounts were balancing, just, basic stuff. I think it was around World War II time is when the US started shifting its focus towards producing high academic graduates. They wanted to win the academic war. They wanted the most educated population when it came to things like math, science, technology is a huge one. And it became a race to the moon. It became a race to have the biggest, the best, the most advanced society. So we wanted a more educated staff that basically could create and be, I guess, more productive than just, doing what you're told sort of thing.
Yeah, that's really interesting because, as you're a part of the FI movement, the importance of finding work that you love as opposed to work that maybe makes you the most money and gets you the farthest in life. So I guess it's kind of a bummer that that's moved away from educating people on how they can handle their own finances, maybe create their own business or work in the trades and have a good life. So let's jump into a little bit about how we can get our kids interested in entrepreneurship. I know you're a teacher, so how do you engage people and how do you get them interested in maybe starting their own little business?
It's pretty much you give them the freedom to do it. So you say like, I usually start with a passion project with my younger age group. So I teach freshmen all the way up to seniors. And in my math classes for freshmen and sophomores particularly, I will run a project where I will say, okay, what is something that you have always wanted to be able to do? So what skill have you always wanted to be able to do? Or is there some topic that you always want to know more about? And usually they've got some sort of answer for that. Sometimes they're looking blank at you like, oh, I've never thought about that before. And you have to kind of probe them a little bit more. But eventually you get something back like, I would love to be able to master this video game. I'd love to be able to do this trick on a skateboard. I'd like to be able to cook, or I'd love to be able to learn this new language, whatever it is. And then I look at them and I say, all right, why haven't you done it yet? And they stare at you blankly, a little confused. It's really kind of cute. And they're like, well, you didn't tell us to do that. And it's so sad that, kids are expecting that they're going to be told what they are going to learn. And unless they are told specifically to learn that there's no other learning that's going to occur in their lives. I actually do a journal entry with my students every week. And this week's topic was, we were talking about Zig Ziglar's automobile university idea. And I asked them, what's something that you're learning about outside of school? And I would say like 50% of them said nothing. Like, I don't learn anything else outside of school. What are you talking about? But I then challenged them, okay, you've got 4 weeks to teach yourself this new skill, this new piece of knowledge, and then come up with a way that you're going to assess whether you have mastered that or not. So they have to teach themselves somehow, either through online, through books, find a free class somewhere, maybe. Just the idea is that it's not coming from me, the teacher. And kids come back and they have to demonstrate their skill in some way. So either they make an instructional video, they produce a poster, they perform the skill if it's something kind of like playing guitar or something like that. And it's really cool to see what kids come up with when you give them the space to create. And then entrepreneurship is basically the same thing. You're kind of saying like, okay, I want you to do the same project, but I want you to produce something that is going to be something that you can monetize. Like I want you to be able to sell either a product or a service to people that's going to solve some problem in society, and you will be able to charge for it in some way. And you kind of let kids realize, okay, what are my passions? What am I excited about? What can I do that maybe the other people in the room can't do? So like, what am I kind of a perceived expert in? And then they get to start developing that and going and doing it. And you get to start realizing, oh, you know what, I can create income here. Like my part-time job at $10 an hour, like I can beat that with just a little bit of side hustling going on. And that's a huge moment for, I think, most people when they realize, oh, I can create income from nothing. I'm not reliant on an employer.
That's incredible. Well, talk to me about some of the businesses that have been created through these projects, or maybe an example that you could share with us.
So the nice thing, and again, the nice thing for me is that I'm not pointing to any major corporation that has spawned from this. I'm looking at kids who have started making flower boxes. You know, they liked woodworking and they started crafting flower boxes and they sold them at their local ag shows and brought home, you know, a couple $100 during the project. And they've gone to college and they're still doing it. I have one kid who emailed me and he's down in Florida somewhere in college, and he started a drop shipping business while in high school and just, you know, sourced stuff from China. I think it was like watches, sunglasses, hats, and was able to get them directly shipped from the manufacturer. So he didn't have to handle stock at all, created a website on Shopify and started selling to his classmates and is still doing it in college. And again, it's not generating thousands of dollars. It's generating like a couple $100 a month, but it's enough for him to say like, oh, I've got some money to invest or to have fun with, something I didn't have beforehand. And like those have been kind of the exciting project. Those are the ones I really love seeing.
That's very cool. That's very cool. So let's talk about the projects that they're interested in. We were specifically talking about these digital sides of things. You know, when you think about kids, it seems like they are a little bit more digitally focused, or a little bit, I guess, more interested in the digital side of things than maybe some adults. So have a lot of the businesses that the kids have come up with been online based, or are they both, you know, I guess crafts as well as online?
Kids are weird. I swear, like they should be the most technology advanced, like of all of us. Yet when you ask them to do something very specific, like from a teacher's point of view, like, oh, I want you to put a picture in a Google document and submit it. It blows their mind. Like, no, I don't know how to do that. I can't figure that one out. Yet they can figure out how to like bypass the firewall in the school and like pull up whatever website they want. I'm like, you guys, you're throwing up walls here when you shouldn't. So sometimes they do, like if they are into gaming, if they're into programming, coding, stuff like that, that tends to be where they go towards. I've had kids who like will build websites for other businesses or other like student businesses, or they'll find local businesses that need a website and they'll build ones for them. But for the most part, a lot of them like to make things. Some like to do YouTube channels and try and, you know, sell instructions on how to do something, or they'll try and be like the person who tries on products or reviews local restaurants. Like it's kind of fun to see what they do. Sometimes it involves technology, sometimes it doesn't.
That's very cool. Well, let's talk to some parents out there that are listening that's saying, hey, you know, I would like to kind of, you know, get my kids going on a small business, or at least have them learn what it takes to start one and then maybe develop some skills from it. What are some simple things that they can do to, I guess, sort of instill or inspire that entrepreneurial spirit for their kids?
A couple different routes you can take. If you want to take charge of it and you want to say, okay, I'm going to be responsible for my kid trying this stuff out, you can do that. Let's start a lemonade stand, or let's start selling hot chocolate. Like if you got a local festival coming up, if you've got, you know, the weather's starting to warm up a little bit, you know, let's put a lemonade stand in the corner. And rather than just kind of like saying, okay, here's the lemonade, here's the cash drawer, like go off you go. Like let them kind of figure it out for themselves, what they need, what are the challenges they're facing, you know, why is nobody stopping? Why are they are they in a bad location? Is it their signs aren't visible? Do they need to advertise in like the community Facebook group? Like, what are some different things they could do to try and get their business to be more successful? If you fail on a lemonade stand, like there's no real loss. You probably had the ingredients in the house already. You probably threw out a table or a crate or something for them to sit on. And they get to kind of experiment and potentially fail, but learn so much from that. And then they get to try again. So you say, okay, what do we do next time? So next week, we're going to do this again. What are you going to do differently? If you want it to happen in schools, I mean, you can start asking your school, can you guys start teaching entrepreneurship? Like, I think this is a really important skill. Same with personal finance. Like, let's start putting pressure on schools from the ground up and say, this needs to happen in school. Let's make it happen, please. Because if we start waiting for, it to come from the top, education takes forever to change. It's one of the slowest moving organizations in the world. I feel like I've done history of education classes and I recognize my classroom from the one, 60 years ago. Like, nothing's changed. It's something that, yeah, you as a parent have a lot of power to put pressure on administration and say, these are things that I want to see. And there is power in numbers. So if you find other parents who are like, yeah, like that makes sense, we should have that. Again, putting pressure on schools to say, like, let's make this an option. Let's provide this. Let's do it. Or you as the parent taking control and saying, I'm going to offer a group on a weekend and we're going to just invite kids to come in and try and start a business and see, can we make that happen?
Yeah, I love your point on trying these small businesses out as a kid or even as a young teen and failing, because failing is great. It helps you to learn about what you don't like or what you've done wrong, and then helps you to improve from there. If you wait to be a late 30s something like me to become an entrepreneur and you start failing, you got a shorter timetable to be successful, right? So I am all about starting early and trial and error, and it's a great way to learn. I was thinking back when I was in middle school and high school, the jobs that I had, I was a caddy, Eddie Bauer folding sweaters, just these random, less than $10 an hour kind of jobs. What are your thoughts on kids focusing their time on starting a business in high school versus getting a part-time job?
I think you could do both. You could do one, you could do the other. So you talked about being a caddy or working in a retail store. I would say to kids, like, if you're going to do that, like, start learning more skills while you're in there. So like, as a caddy, could you have learned more about how to play golf? Like, could you have found some of these guys that you were caddying for and say, hey, I noticed you're doing this with your swing. Like, why are you doing that? Or, what should I do with my swing to get better? Or, what else do you need from a caddy? How can I become a better caddy? And you start like kind of increasing your worth to people. I mean, a caddy is potentially an entrepreneurship job right there. Like, you could go to anybody and say, hey, I'll be your personal caddy. No problem. Like, here's my number. Here's my card. Come hire me. If you're working in a clothing store, like, what is it that people want? What do they look for when they come into a clothing store? Could you provide that? So could you then take the skills and the knowledge you learned in there and suddenly say, all right, I can do this for other teens. Like, I kind of get what they want. They want like good customer service. They want a variety of, sizes, shapes, colors, whatever it is for clothing, or they want somebody to tell them what looks good, what doesn't look good. And if I can provide that service outside of my employed job, well, now suddenly I've got my own business.
Yeah, I like that. So it's kind of taking the mindset from employee to self-employed, at least, so you can say, hey, where can I be a business owner and help people in a different way outside of what I've got right there? But taking the skills from being an employee. I like that a lot. That makes a lot of sense. So Rob, you are personally writing this line between employee right now as a teacher, and then you're an author, and you're doing this entrepreneur thing too. So let's talk about your story a little bit. How did you decide to become an entrepreneur?
Well, I kind of guess I am riding that line, and I'm kind of trying to push that line constantly to see which side of it do I really want to fall on the most. I like, what comes with having a salary. There's a lot of great benefits that come with being a teacher, but also, the entrepreneurship thing is just something that excites me so much, and teaching does too, which is nice. So I get to kind of marry the two when I teach entrepreneurship, but it gave me a safe place to experiment. So you're right. Like, the later you go, the less room there is to fail if you're looking for something that's going to be an income generator for you. So by starting with side hustling during your full-time job, you kind of get to experiment. You get to try stuff out. If it doesn't work, that's fine. You still got your full-time job there anyway. But as soon as you find something that maybe you can grab onto, you're like, you know what, this has got legs to run. I want to throw my full weight into this. Well, now suddenly you've put the framework in there and you're not really making a big leap where there's no income, there's no guidance. You're not just saying someday, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and you've got no plan. So it's giving me a nice runway to decide eventually, like, do I want to do something like this full time? Or am I happy in this kind of married state between the two? Or do I want to just focus on my full-time job? And writing a book was, it kind of just was convenient almost. It fell into my lap that all these things kind of came together. I was talking with students about starting businesses. So I was teaching that particular unit, and I was having to generate like these multiple worksheets every single day to try and guide them through questions I wanted them to answer as they were developing their business. And I realized, this doesn't exist already. I'm already kind of making this resource, and I really just had to build it out a little bit more. And I had a workbook that I knew would be valuable to other teachers or parents or students that you could just hand it to them and say, here is a how-to guide for starting a business. On the other side, pursuing financial independence, I was thinking, all right, what are some potential sources of passive income? Because those are the true, I guess, ones that will help you to get towards FI, that you can reduce your financial independence number if you have sources of passive income when you retire.
Yeah, well, let's talk about your plans for financial independence, though. So how does this entrepreneurship plan fit into the other ways you're saving for financial independence?
So the book, I have no clue, because it just depends on, how much income it generates. It's not something I'm counting on. It's sort of like when you do blogging or podcasting, you're doing it because you love it. It's fun. It's a great hobby to have. And then if it suddenly starts generating money, you're like, well, cool, that's awesome. That helps a little bit, but I'm not necessarily relying on that full time. I do like having multiple sources of income. So I feel like if I lost my teaching job for some reason, that I could replace about 30 to 40% of my teaching income immediately with side hustles, that they've built up enough at this point that they're all kind of combining to this nice number. That's like kind of like my FU money as well. Like if I felt like my teaching job wasn't really fulfilling me anymore, I could leave that, either find a different teaching job or go do something else. So it's that peace of mind that it brings, which is so nice. And it's really great for our family as well. So like, my wife and my son, who is 6 months old, would love to be able to spend more time at home with him. Like my wife gets to cut down on her work time this year because we have all these additional sources of income. And she's able to say, you know what, I'm not going to work as hard as I was. She's still working. She still loves to work, but she gets to stay home with our son during the day. And then I get to tag her out after my school day, which ends at 3 p.m. And she gets to go to work for a couple of hours and I get to spend time with my son. And then we both get the evenings together. So it is a really nice kind of blend at the moment. In terms of other businesses, I've kind of shut down most of my other ones at the moment, mostly because I want to protect that time with, my son while he's young and our family. But, I have refereed lacrosse as a side hustle. I have done tutoring. I do Teachers Pay Teachers, which is a website where teachers can post the resources they create, and other teachers have the option to buy them if they feel like it would save them a ton of time to buy them rather than make them themselves. And actually, school districts can now buy those resources for their teachers too. So it's really turning into an exciting opportunity that I want to keep developing.
That's very cool. I like how you have blended both your side hustle side with your interests as well as your full-time employment with your interests, because that is what you're teaching to your students too. Come up with an idea that interests you first. What are you really excited about, whether it's skateboarding or video games, and then try to figure out how you can monetize that. So I think that's beautiful, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's give some advice to some people who are listening right now and they're interested in this entrepreneur side of things. So let's just say there's a parent listening and they want to help their kids develop a business, and they are looking just for one takeaway after this interview to step forward and help let's say their kids in high school and they want to help them to develop their first business. What's the first step that they should take?
I would start with listening to people and watching them. So you and your child, like, go walk through the town, go start listening to the radio a little bit more, and just start seeing, like, what are people complaining about? And every time you hear someone complain about something, stop and have the conversation with your child. Like, what might a solution to that look like? Like, it can be as achievable or unrealistic as possible. Just like, what would a potential solution to this look like, whether it exists in the world today or not? And then turn the conversation to, well, what are your child's skills, their strengths, their interests? And like you said, what is some way to monetize that? So how could you fix someone else's problem while also, enjoying the skill that you love to do? That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I am not like the CEO of a massive company. Like, I am the expert at doing a simple startup. So that first one that gets you off the ground, gets you going. And then once you kind of graduate from that, you can decide to keep pursuing the simple startup, or you can move on to bigger and better things because now you've got the groundwork done, you've got the basic skills, and you can move on to something else.
That makes sense. Solving problems helps not only you from a monetization standpoint, but it helps the customer as well. So that's cool. You also mentioned, getting involved in your community and saying, hey, how do we get some of these classes going at our school? What would be the first step a parent could take or a community leader could take to get the ball rolling with their local school?
So say you wanted to get financial literacy becoming more of a focus in your school. I would do something like look at the ChooseFI site. So it's like choosefi.com/K12, and you see like the financial literacy curriculum there. And you just simply send that link to an administrator and say, hey, you should check this out. I think it'd be really cool to use in the school, and financial literacy is a really important idea. And let your administrators know, like, I'm interested in this. I want to help you guys get this going. Or if you have a kid in school, like, email their teacher and say, look, there are lots of ways you can bring financial concepts into your classroom. Like, let's make it happen. Here's some great resources you could use just in case you didn't know they were there. And the more you kind of help teachers realize that this stuff is there, the more they're going to be able to incorporate that into their own teaching, their own building. And then the more it gets in there, the more administrators will realize, okay, this is really having a positive effect on students, on parents. It's making us look good as a school system. Like, it's a win-win for everybody, really.
That's great, and I love that it's an easily accessible resource that makes the job easy for teachers as opposed to putting more homework on them to figure it out. So tell us a little bit more about where people can find those resources and a little bit about what's going on with you and where people can find you and this new book that you talked about.
Yeah. So just kind of the other half of that question, if entrepreneurship was what you were trying to push in a school, like something like the workbook I've created, like that's one example of something you could do. You could send a link to thesimplestartup.com and say, look, this is a really cool idea, project that you could bring into your school. Maybe you should try and make it happen and see what happens with that. You can find out more about the curriculum at that ChooseFI.com/K12. If you want to read more about Simple Startup, check out Simple Startup's website. If you want to engage with me and I can help walk you through some different ideas, you can find me on Twitter at FI Educator, or you can send me an email, rob@ChooseFI.com.
Excellent. Rob, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having a conversation with me about this. I think that this could really help a lot of not only teachers, but parents to help their kids get to the next level. So thanks a lot, Rob. I appreciate you being here today.